The people of South Africa cannot dictate to the ANC who it elects to its structures. However, this is a party which claims to be a leader of society. Now, how are we supposed to believe in or even trust this party when it has the audacity to elect to its leadership positions people who are accused of murder?
I must say to yourself and the listeners and viewers that we who were there were equally shocked, and we actually decisively also intervened to say it can be. It can be in the ANC, and we addressed the full conference to say that when the name came up, because it comes from sealed envelopes, and then they are opened and read to conference, not even to us as leaders, as part and parcel of the confidentiality of the electoral process. So when the matter came up, we interacted with the IEC, or our electoral committee, which is also independent and has observers as well. And they said because there are no rules stipulated for eligibility that specifically excludes that, there's nothing they can do. So we have to address it after their job is done. And that's what we did. We addressed the matter immediately after that the announcement was made. We congratulated the delegates for being disciplined and going through the whole process, and we actually read the resolutions of the 54th conference of the NEC, which binds everyone who is a member of the ANC throughout the country. And the provincial conference of delegates did consent that indeed it was an error of judgment, and that the person cannot assume that office. So as is now, even the president did allude to that when he closed conference to say that we will tighten our rules so that already the electoral process, which is independent, can pick that up and ensure that they immediately disqualify for eligibility. So we certainly dealt with it swiftly and decisively.
Okay, so you've said a number of words which in a way confuse me, but they appear decisive nonetheless. So you're saying you've dealt with the matter and you have come to a resolution that the eligibility of this person cannot be. What does this mean in practice? Because your words are quite cryptic, if I could call them that, just as cryptic as the president's when he says he wants for the leadership and the membership of the ANC in Mpumalanga to, quote-unquote, reflect on this decision. What does this mean in practice?
In practice, it means that we have already asked the provincial leadership to send that message to the comrades, and secondly, we have also written a letter to him to indicate that because the same prevailing conditions as they still exist prior to conference, they also apply. He cannot assume. He remains stepped aside, and we actually commended him for stepping aside, because those that refuse to step aside, we immediately suspend them. So we have informed him that he remains stepped aside. He cannot participate in organizational programs and activities, let alone in a leadership position. So that is the matter, and this matter, as I've indicated, we also are taking it as a lesson for all the other conferences, and we are going back to the rules to enable the electoral process to deal with it automatically.
All right. I'm glad you used the word step aside because
Yes.
we're now going to deal with yet another of your leaders, ANC Women's League President Bathabile Dlamini, sentenced for dishonesty in a court of law. First question, do you think she'll ever be eligible for public office again?
Look, if you ask me about the spirit of the resolutions of the 54th National Conference, I will say most definitely that's a serious incident which goes against the honesty, the integrity, and the ethical conduct of leaders. However, conference said we must translate those resolutions into regulations and rules. And maybe that's where sometimes we haven't tightened up. And as the president said, we take it that everyone will act ethically because that's what the organization decided it wants.
Dr. Ramokgopa.
But we have to come up with rules for those that do not automatically do so.
The reason I'm interrupting you, and I apologize sincerely for doing so, you're saying that you rely on members to listen to their conscience. Well, we've seen leaders having to be forced out of the positions of responsibility because their conscience simply is not talking to them. And so, again, I ask you the question. Bathabile Dlamini has been found in a court of law to have been dishonest. It's not the first time, by the way. My simple question to you, is this the kind of person who should find herself holding a position of minister in the near future?
You must ask me whether anyone who is found dishonest by a court of law or even in society in our day-to-day disciplinary action should hold office. And I would say that should not be. And we need to tighten our rules so that there are no loopholes because the decision is not only of us as the NEC, the decisions also comes from the branches. And sometimes maybe to be considerate of branches is that sometimes they do not have the full picture. If we have not as yet gone to them through rules, through regular interactions and meetings and conscientization. So it's a continuous program on our table to root out corruption, to root out dishonesty, to root out unethical behavior within the African National Congress. Because you must remember, we say the ANC is the leader of society, not because we have decided so, but because society itself embraced the leadership of the ANC. And society has sent a clear message that deal with this matter, and we have made progress, but there are still gaps that we are closing.
All right, so let's conclude the conversation then. What's there to discuss with Bathabile Dlamini? Because she's not only been convicted in a court of law, she's actually been sentenced, meaning that she's acknowledging guilt for what she did. What's there to discuss with her then by members of the ANC Top Six?
Well, there is really nothing, in my opinion, to discuss. There was a process, and the officials will be receiving a report thereon of a three-member committee that was put together. So the report will be received this morning.
Dr. Gwen Ramokgopa, thank you very much for your time.